Have you ever wondered what it means when the trees whisper your name? Or why a deer with no eyes might be watching you from the edge of your vision? Would you obey a rule that made no sense, if breaking it meant your guts might be found frozen in the woods, 5 miles from where you screamed your last? Yeah. Neither did I. But I learned. The hard way. I'm a ranger at Black Pine National Park, buried in the throat of northern Alaska, far enough off the maps that even the bears need directions. No tourists. No campsites. Just a frozen forest that devours sound and spits back dread. You won't find us in any guidebooks, and trust me, that's not an accident. You don't come here unless something's chasing you, or unless you've got nowhere else to run. It all started last year, when I finally cracked under the pressure of city life. Concrete, car horns, faces stacked on faces, every day another nail in my skull. I was suffocating under fluorescent lights and deadlines. So when I saw the listing, park ranger needed. Remote station. Full isolation, I thought I'd struck gold. What I got was something ancient. The station was buried deep in snow, framed by a forest that stood too still, like it was holding its breath. But it wasn't the loneliness that rattled me. No, what stopped me cold was the manual they handed me on day one. It looked like it had been dragged through a campfire and left in the rain. Pages curled and blackened, the kind of thing you'd expect to find buried in a haunted attic, not given to a new hire. The cover was bare. Just one sentence, scrawled in ink so dark it looked like dried blood. Follow the rules or die. I scoffed. Thought it was some frontier hazing, test the new guy, see if he scares easy. But no one cracked a smile. Not even Gus. He's the head ranger, a man carved from stone and frostbite, with a 1,000-yard stare and the emotional range of a boulder. Then there's Jess, baby-faced and twitchy, like a rabbit listening for predators. Carl limps when he walks, no one says why, and Marla. Marla's the kind of woman who sleeps with one eye open and a loaded rifle under her bed, even when it's not hunting season. Gus handed me the manual like it weighed 100 pounds. Read it. Memorize it. Leave by it, he growled. I opened to the first rule. 1. Never be outside after 11:17 p.m. Not 11:18. Not 11:17 and 30 seconds. Get indoors. Lock every door and window. Cover them. Do not look out. My brow furrowed. I asked, what happens if you're late? Gus didn't speak. Just looked at me like he was watching a man dig his own grave. Marla, without missing a beat, said, we lost a guy last winter. 30 seconds late. Found parts of him scattered like confetti. 5 miles from the station. Only parts. From that moment on, I followed the rules like gospel. There were 13 in total. And every single one was written like a threat. Or a warning. Maybe both. Let me give you a taste. 2. If you hear your name whispered in the trees, do not answer. Even if it sounds like someone you know. Especially then. 3. Once a week, place raw meat in the red box behind cabin 3. Do not look inside. Do not open the box more than once. 4. If you see a deer with no eyes, go inside. Stay silent. Do not speak until sunrise. At first, it all felt like some twisted campfire story designed to make rookies lose sleep. But as the frost tightened its grip and winter bled into the bones of the forest, something shifted. The air grew heavier. Like it was watching and listening. The woods stopped sounding right. Sometimes they were so quiet you could hear your heartbeat echo between the trees. Other times, they screamed. Wind howled like it was being strangled. Branches cracked in patterns too rhythmic to be random. And once, just once, I swear the trees breathed. It started with little things. A window that wouldn't stay closed no matter how many times I locked it. Footsteps in the snow with no trail in or out. My name scratched into the frost on my cabin window, backward, from the inside. But that's just the beginning. Because I haven't even told you what happened the first night I broke Rule 5. And trust me, once you know what's really in those woods, you'll understand why we stopped trying to leave. Next, I am about to tell you what crawled out of the box behind cabin 3, and why I think it remembers me. At first, the rules read like twisted folklore. Campfire tales passed down by the paranoid. I told myself it was all some elaborate psychological game, designed to keep new rangers alert in the deep freeze of Alaskan isolation. But as days bled into each other, and winter seeped into our bones like poison, something changed. Not just in the forest, but in the air itself. It thickened. The silence became unnatural, suffocating. Some nights, the quiet buzzed like static in my skull. Other nights, the forest erupted with noise, cracking limbs, shrieking wind, and a low, throaty rumble that echoed like a voice trying to remember how to form words. And then, the little things started. Subtle shifts. Harmless, if you squinted, until you realized they weren't. It was around 10:30 p.m. when Jess knocked on my door. The sound startled me, not because of the hour, but because of the way she knocked. 3 times. Then again. Then one more. Fast, trembling. Like she was trying not to scream. When I opened the door, Jess stood there stiff as a board, her face drained of all color, eyes wide and glassy like she'd seen something watching her from beneath the ice. Her voice was barely a breath. I heard something. Out by the lake. I blinked. What kind of something? She swallowed, the motion visible in her thin neck. It sounded like my mom. She kept saying she was cold. She said she needed help. A lead weight settled in my stomach. Jess, your mom lives in Texas. She nodded slowly. Then, barely audible, she sounded just like her. I didn't hesitate. My throat constricted as I forced myself to speak with steel. Don't answer it. Don't speak. Don't even listen. Again, she nodded. But the terror in her eyes told me it was already too late. Then came the worst night. The one that still replays behind my eyes every time I try to sleep. It was mid-January. The sky outside was a yawning void, so black it swallowed the moon. The kind of cold that hurts your bones, even indoors. I was in my cabin, the hiss of my kerosene lamp the only sound, reading a tattered copy of The Things They Carried, when the radio crackled. Static tore through, then Gus's voice, low, urgent, and rough. Ranger Mike. Cabin 3. The red box is open. My heart jerked. Who opened it? A pause. Then, just go. Bring your rifle. Those words dragged the blood out of my face. I grabbed my coat, snatched the rifle off the wall, and ran. Cabin 3 was perched at the far edge of the station, past a path barely wide enough for a snowmobile, flanked by black pines that leaned in too close, as if they were eavesdropping. With every step, the air grew heavier. Then the smell hit me. Rot. Decay. Something old and meat-slick, like roadkill baked into the snow. But beneath it, something metallic, rust and ozone, like blood struck by lightning. The box was open. Its lid dangled like a broken jaw. Inside, the meat sat untouched, but the snow around it had melted into a slick pool. And something, had scratched gouges into the wood deep enough to splinter it. Long, jagged lines, almost symbols. Carl stood 10 feet away, rifle raised, knuckles white. His voice trembled. It came out of the woods. What did? I asked, breath fogging in the frigid air. He didn't answer. Just kept aiming into the tree line like something was staring back. Then Marla appeared, boots crunching the snow, rifle cocked and ready. We have to burn it, she said, eyes hard. Now, the box, it's not safe. Gus was last to arrive, dragging a red gas can behind him like it weighed more than it should. He didn't speak. Just soaked the box in gasoline and lit a match. The flames roared to life. But they weren't orange. They burned green. We stood there, rifles ready, not saying a word, watching that unnatural fire consume the box until it was nothing but a smear of ash in the snow. And now I can't stop hearing whispers in my ears. Voices that know my name. Voices that say they've already come inside. I'll tell you what happened on the third night without sleep, and what I saw crawling up from beneath the snow. After the box opened itself, everything changed. The rules didn't just evolve, they mutated. The forest was rewriting the manual one nightmare at a time, and Gus was the only one trying to keep ahead of it. When he handed me the new page, his hands shook like old paper in the wind. It smelled like sulfur. A new rule. 14. If the box opens by itself, burn it and don't sleep for 3 nights. Don't dream. Don't close your eyes for more than a blink. I stared at the rule, my skin crawling. What happens if you fall asleep? I asked. Gus didn't blink. He said, "You don't wake up alone." I followed it. Of course I did. I poured scalding coffee down my throat until my pulse throbbed in my teeth. My hands trembled constantly. My skin buzzed like electricity lived beneath it. But I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Not after what I saw in those first waking nightmares. Shadows slithering just beyond my peripheral vision. Trees that leaned inward as if listening. Branches that twitched when the wind was dead still. By February, Carl was gone. We found his cabin unlocked. Bed unmade. Rifle untouched. The window was open, and the snow had blown him like a soft tide, gentle and white, except for a single smear of something dark across the sill. Not blood exactly. Not paint. Just wrong. There were no footprints outside. Nothing leading away. It was like he'd been pulled upward. Marla was the next to crack. She locked herself inside her cabin. Covered the windows with duct tape. Stopped answering the radio. I heard her once, screaming, just once, and then nothing. Gus didn't panic. He didn't flinch. He just scribbled new rules like a prophet under siege. His handwriting grew shakier with each one. His eyes sunk deeper into their sockets. 15. Don't trust mirrors. If your reflection moves when you don't, break the glass and bury it face down. 16. If you find a child in the woods, leave it there. It is not a child. 17. If you wake up in a different room than you fell asleep in, pretend to be asleep. Don't open your eyes until someone calls your name. Each rule was a scream disguised as advice. A blood-soaked plea hidden under ink. It got to be too much. I started losing time. Blinking and finding myself somewhere else. Sometimes I'd be on the northern trail, standing in knee-deep snow, with no memory of how I got there. My hands would be raw. My mouth dry. My boots covered in pine needles. I saw things. A man, if you could call him that, with antlers rising like twisted bone from his skull, drifting between the trees with the weightless grace of something that's never known flesh. Eyes stared at me from snowbanks. Blinking. Unblinking. Too many. Too wide. And voices, oh God, the voices, always my mother's voice. Begging. Asking why I left her. Asking if I remembered what I did. But I followed the rules. Even when it hurt. Even when I didn't believe anymore. And then one morning, Gus was gone. No sign of struggle. No trail. No blood. Just silence. The station was empty. Not even Marla's screams anymore. The air had a finality to it, like the forest was holding its breath for a punchline. I returned to my cabin in a daze. Closed the door. Locked it. Sat down. And that's when I saw it. On the wall, scrawled in shaky, black ink, almost clawed into the wood. 18. If you're the last one left, don't leave. Don't try. It knows when you give up. That broke something in me. I sat there for hours, staring at that rule. Watching the snow fall outside like it was trying to bury the station one flake at a time. The world was silent, and I was alone. I've been alone ever since. Weeks now. The radio's dead. Batteries drained. Wires torn. No planes. No supply runs. No curious hikers. Just white. Endless white and the crackle of something breathing between the trees. But I've kept the rules. All of them. I feed the new box behind cabin 3, even though I swear it purrs when I open the lid. I stay inside after 11:17 like my life depends on it, because it does. I ignore the voices. I don't look at the deer with no eyes. But last night, I made a mistake. I broke one. It was stupid, just a reflex. A whisper came, soft and familiar. My name, spoken like a sigh from someone I loved. I turned. Just for a second. I looked out the window. And I saw it. It wasn't human. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. It stood too tall. Moved like it was made from stitched up regrets and half-remembered nightmares. Antlers curved upward like spider legs. Eyes that blinked sideways, sideways. A mouth that stretched open too far, like a wound that wanted to speak. It saw me. And then, it smiled. I'm not safe anymore. I feel it getting closer with every hour. Scratching at the edges of my thoughts. Sliding into the cracks behind my eyes. Whispering things I almost believe. I can't sleep. I won't sleep. But I'm writing this down, because someone has to know. Someone might find this. Maybe someone will take my place. Maybe they'll do better than I did. Because the last rule, the one no one tells you until it's too late, was never written in the manual. It was scratched into the wall. Barely legible. Almost like it didn't want to be read. 19. Don't write the rules down. Too late now. So if you're watching this, if you found this page, or this cabin, or this story on some old dusty recording, run. And don't ever stop. If you've made it this far, you're a legend. If you're loving the story, hit subscribe. It helps the channel grow and lets me bring you even more awesome stories. Your support means everything.